Hi all and welcome to this webinar on RBI's 3 rules for MITC and how to comply. A few house rules. One, we will be sharing a recording of this webinar within the next 48 working hours. So actually Monday evening, realistically latest. You will receive it in the email that you used to register for this webinar. Second, we will be having an open question and answer session at the end in about maybe 30 minutes. So where we will actually give you mic access to ask questions. However, if you want to ask questions before that, or you don't want to ask on the mic, you can drop them in at any point in time in the Q&A box below. So let's begin. First, a quick run through of today's agenda. First, I'll run through the modern credit card journey and tell you exactly how this maps to RBI's 3 rules for MITC and agreements. Then interwoven into this is giving you actually an operational guidance on how you can actually operationally build an RBI compliant digital flow for your MITC. Then we will move beyond theory and Shubhesh will show you a live demo and then we'll do an open Q&A, right? So I'm Aditya, head of marketing at Leegality, a former lawyer now working on legal and compliance technology. I'm joined by my co-host Shubhesh, who leads product marketing efforts at Leegality. He will be showing you the good stuff, the fun stuff. He'll be showing you the live demo in some time, right? Before we dive into the agenda, since there are a few people new to Leegality here, a quick 2-minute plug of who we are, and then we'll dive straight into the session, right? So Leegality is a document infrastructure platform with features designed for organizations like yours to build paperless processes for agreements, forms, and other legal documents. Leading card issuers already use Leegality to build paperless MITC agreement and application form journeys for credit card flows. Paperless and compliant, right? And I assume one to align ourselves, like we are all here because I'm assuming that you want ultimately a great customer experience, right? That you want a paperless experience for your credit cards, right? And the standard response by the industry often for this demand for simplicity, for this demand for digital from customers has been either you get it completely through the app or a process like the one we're showing you on screen, right? A phygital kind of process where either a human is meeting, let's say at an airport kiosk, and you do that part of the journey physically, and then half of the journey happens online later, or over phone, right? You get a call from your RM saying, hey, you're eligible for a card. Do you want a card? Sometimes you get a call that's from someone who's not even from your bank, a different bank, right? Saying, hey, do you want a card? Right? And there they guide you through the process completely digitally over phone, right? But these flows all have one thing in common, whether it's the app-based flow, whether it's the phygital flow, whether it's the phone-based flow, right? What we've seen consistently is that these 3 flows have one thing in common usually, right? They violate RBI's rules on MITC and agreements, right? What are the 3 violations? One, the card issuer does not digitally sign. 2, the card holder does not digitally sign. 3, the docket is completely in English. And a fourth one, these 3 are direct violations of the rules we're going to talk about today. But the fourth thing is also that this process itself lends itself or has a high scope for fraud, right? We'll cover this at the end briefly, right? First, let's dive into the 3 rules I mentioned, right? Because I told you that those were violations. Why exactly, right? Let's cover the 3 rules. So rule 1 that we're going to talk about today, the MITC and agreement must be digitally signed, i.e. with an IT Act signature. 2, this digital signature must be by both the card holder and the card issuer. Just one will not do. And 3, the docket must be in English, Hindi, and the customer's local language, right? Let's cover this one by one. So rule 1 and 2 can be found in pretty much the same sentence of the clause C2 of RBI's credit card and debit card issuance directions 2025, right? We've highlighted it here. It says the MITC and copy of agreement must be digitally signed, right? The MITC and copy of the agreement signed/digitally signed between the card issuer and card holder, so on and so forth, right? Second part, rule 2, between the card holder and card issuer, which is rule 2 that we mentioned, right? So it must be digitally signed between card holder and card issuer, rule 1 and 2. Digitally signed, both parties must sign. And obviously, this has to be sent via email or postal address if you're doing physical, postal address if you're doing digital via email. But this flow, I think you already have built, right? Most credit card companies do send it via email. So let's go one by one. Two rules here, right? Rule one, digitally sign, right? It's crystal clear under law, right? So Section 5 of the Information Technology Act states that when a law or regulation states explicitly uses the word sign or digitally sign, then if you want to accomplish this process digitally, you can only use an IT Act electronic signature. You cannot use any other electronic authentication method, right? And IT Act e-signs are a very specific set of signatures, right? Aadhaar e-sign of any type, one, PAN e-sign, DSC token, those USB devices that we're all familiar with, and doc signer. There are no other types of e-sign available. There is a kind of a fifth one, a niche one used in some cases, I think for eNash, if I'm not wrong, where via KYC you can also do a sign. That's not very common for retail document flows. But basically the point is that e-sign is confined to these specifically mentioned types of sign, right? You definitely cannot use clickwrap, right? Which is a form of I accept, yes or no box, or you cannot use a virtual scribble signature, right? If you're doing it digitally, right? But a lot of issuers in the phygital process we talked about earlier, or even in the app-based process, do use clickwrap, right? Usually an I accept with a line at the bottom which says, hey, this is like a signature that you're affixing on the agreement. But as we mentioned, RBI's rules explicitly prevent this. They want a digital signature. So that's rule one, digitally sign, right? Meaning an IT Act e-sign, which is basically four types of e-sign, no other type permitted. Now coming to the second rule, between the card issuer and card holder, right? So in many cases, there is no bank sign on the MITC at all. It's usually some virtual scribble at best. Sometimes there's no signature at all. And what we said, right, is that ultimately you have to use one of the four types of e-signs. But let's be practical here. Not all of these four types are usable. So in this section, I'll give you a guide on how to choose the type of e-sign for this process, right? So one, DSC tokens, the third thing mentioned here, are very hard to use. They keep failing. Most of your customers don't have one. Even the customers that do have one usually do not keep them on person. It's probably with their chartered accountant or secretary. So while DSC is technically valid, there is no way it's going to be a convenient process for your customer, right? It's not viable at all. PAN e-sign is also similar. It's very hard to actually obtain a PAN e-sign and actually affix a PAN e-sign. So even that is not viable. And doc signer, the fourth one, is a purely automated signature. So it's not possible for the card holder. It's issued to an organization and is automated. So for your card holder, your customer, the only viable e-sign type is an Aadhaar e-sign. And usually in the industry, credit card industry, this is via OTP. If you want to do something like, let's say, a Kisan credit card at the branch, or you want to do an issuing drive where you want it to be signed then and there, you can also use a biometric or a face authentication, right? But usually what we've seen is Aadhaar OTP is the preferred method, except for Kisan credit card, where actually biometric is preferred because it's done at the branch. For the card issuer, on the other hand, Aadhaar e-sign is very impractical, right? Because your signatory is not going to sit and do one Aadhaar e-sign every few minutes for every application that comes in. Same with DSC and PAN, right? Aadhaar e-sign, DSC, PAN, they are basically e-signs. You can do one e-sign per transaction that you do. Instead, doc signer, which we said you can't use for card holder because it's automatic, can be used here. It's great here, right? Because it is a company sign issued to your company. It's an automated sign. So it gets automatically affixed after the card holder has signed. There is no manual involvement needed of your authorized signatory, right? It's a sign you can just, as a matter of process, keep getting affixed on your credit card MITC and agreements. So this is a very popular e-sign type already in digital lending flows, where RBI's digital lending directions also mention that the loan kit sent to the customer must be digitally signed, right? So that's rule two, right? Rule one, IT Act e-sign. Rule two, for card holder, use Aadhaar e-sign if you want to be practical about it, and doc signer for the card issuer, right? So that's rule one and two. So now we'll come to rule three. Rule three is about local and vernacular language, right? In the same clause above, right? The MITC shall be provided to the customer, and in brackets, preferably in English, Hindi, and the local language. Now, you may say that hey, this is not a mandate. RBI clearly says preferably. So it's an option. It's not mandatory. But the fact is that if you plan to expand your card program to wider segments, especially things like Kisan credit card, right? Then it becomes an issue, right? Because most Indians do not speak English or are not comfortable in English, right? And in this scenario, basically, because of this demographic fact, preferably is pretty much mandatory, right? So for an e-sign flow, this means two things. One is the MITC and agreement must be in vernacular. This is simple enough to understand. But two, and this is the second part that people often miss, your e-sign interface should also be vernacular, because in a digital journey, the process is also part of the document, right? It involves multiple buttons, multiple steps. E-sign consent has to be taken in the interface itself for the agreement. So like we often take it for granted that, hey, it's a simple e-sign flow because we understand English, right? So we put up a Mandarin Chinese interface on screen. Just put yourself in the shoes of someone signing this, right? How would you feel if, in order to get a credit card or in order to enter into a significant financial transaction, you had to click through this screen, which is full of buttons, full of instructions, and has a consent that you actively have to tick, but you don't understand, right? It would be incredibly alienating and would practically lead to drop-offs as well, right? Which is why you need all aspects of the interface to be in vernacular in order to truly comply in spirit with the vernacular requirement, right? So one, vernacular e-sign link; two, a vernacular MITC and agreement; three, vernacular e-sign consent; and of course, vernacular buttons, vernacular instructions, and things like that. The entire interface being in vernacular, right? So that's rule 3 and how to comply, right? So here we are, like the 3 rules for MITC and onboarding agreement that a credit card issuer must follow, right? We've summarized this in an easy to understand checklist sort of framework here. So even if you didn't pay full attention or someone you know didn't attend the webinar, this slide has pretty much everything you need to know about what I just covered. But there's a fourth issue beyond the rules, right, that arises. And this arises not just with your clickwrap process. This can arise with an e-sign process that I've just spoken to you about as well, which is fraud, right? So how does that work? Because even in an e-sign based process, there is a chance, and this is having spoken to card holders, card issuers, right, that we work with. This is a problem they were very keen to solve, is that there's a chance of a card holder using someone else's Aadhaar to e-sign. Now, fraud is a strong word. So the intent of the card holder may not be fraud. It may just be that, hey, they don't have an Aadhaar link to their mobile, but they want the credit card, so they use their family's card, right? But the end result for you, and so yeah, sure, their intent is not to fraud you or anything like that. But ultimately, the end result for you, the card issuer, is the same. The e-sign affixed on the agreement is actually not of the card holder, right? Which is a disaster for you, right? And in the eyes of RBI, it means that your process itself is prone to fraud, even if that specific customer didn't intend to defraud. The fact that they can sign with someone else's signature means your entire process is actually inherently vulnerable to fraudulent actors, right? So for this, what your e-sign process needs is a built-in fraud prevention mechanism, whereby if there's a mismatch in any of the Aadhaar details with the details they provided to you, say in the application form, the sign is blocked, right? We'll show you how this works in the demo. But beyond this verification, in India, there's a specific unique issue where a name mismatch need not be an actual mismatch, right? It may be because someone's name on Aadhaar is different in spelling from their name on the application form, right? And this is very common in India, right? There's a one letter extra in the Aadhaar or one letter less in the application form, or the middle name is there in their application form, but it's not there in their Aadhaar. This happens every day. It happens with significant number of people. So in this scenario, e-sign verifier, if you have a strict match, will actually force drop-offs even in genuine cases, right? And actually give the customer the message, hey, this is a mismatch, right? So the customer is feeling like they're being accused of something when they're not actually doing anything. So here, what you need is a second layer of e-sign fraud prevention that allows genuine cases where there's a minor name mismatch, right? So if you see on screen, the same e-sign verifier blocks on the second row a clear mismatch where the name is completely different, but allows a genuine discrepancy to go through where Kiran Kumar, Kiran K. Kumar, it's like, okay, this is actually the same name. We'll show you exactly how this works in the demo. But before that, we've just updated our checklist. to include this fourth point, right? So actually ignore that previous slide. This is the slide you want to see if you want to understand what I've just spoken about. If you want to send it to someone in your organization who's not attended this webinar, this is the slide that summarizes the entire webinar so far, right? But now let's move beyond theory. Let's actually show you how some of these things work, right? Some of these features being used by existing customers for the credit card process. So I'll hand it over to Shubhesh to show you our digital credit card MITC demo. I mentioned, please drop your questions in the Q&A box if you have any at any point in time. We usually pick up most of these questions during the session itself.
Thanks a lot, Aditya. So what I'm going to show you first, let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Great. So what I have here is a mock app of this could be your website, this could be your app, this could be the app that you have at your kiosk whenever a customer is coming to apply for a credit card. And in this, I'm going to show you exactly how Leegality gets integrated in your current systems, and then I'm going to show you how it works on the back end. So customer will come, they'll select an offer, they'll start their application, they'll fill their name, their whatever details you want to collect from them, any proof you want to collect from them in the application, and then they'll do KYC. Once all of this is done, their MITC and credit card agreement will get generated, and this is where Leegality comes in and gets integrated. All they'll have to do is click on the e-sign button, and it will automatically start a Leegality signing journey. Just give it a second, it's loading. Yeah. Great. So I'm working on a slow internet connection. That's why it's taking some time. But if you're working on a normal internet connection, it's not going to take this much time. If you can see, both MITC and the agreement are part of the same docket. If you want it to be in separate document, if you want to send both of them separately, you can do that also. And soon we will have a feature wherein the person would be able to see both of these features, documents separately in the same link as well. But that's a product that is still building. So I go through this application in MITC. If I'm as a customer, I'm satisfied with it, I'll proceed. If I'm not, then I'll reject. And this is a fully English flow. Let's say, again, coming back to the requirement of local languages for MITC, you can configure this entire agreement in any vernacular language using Leegality templates. I'll show you exactly how when I show you the second part of the demo, how to set this up. And even this interface, you can change while setting it up, you can change the language of this interface to whichever language that document is in. So if you'll see here, I've quickly changed it to Hindi to show you how it would look. So I'll proceed. I'll give e-sign consent for Aadhaar e-sign, and I'll be taken to the Aadhaar e-sign provider. Let's say, so I'm taken to NSDL, and while trying NSDL, I face an issue. So what will happen is, I'll actually show you. So I'll go back to this. Let's assume I tried e-signing via NSDL and it didn't work. So I'll just have to refresh the link for the agreements. Then I'll click on proceed again. I'll give the e-sign consent again. And if you would see, it automatically took me to CDSL. Leegality identified that there were some issues with Protean NSDL previously when the sign was attempted. So this time it needs to send it to a different ESP so that the signing could be completed. I've given my consent for the Aadhaar sign here again, entered my number, and now I'll just wait for OTP. Yeah, I've received the OTP. I'll verify and sign. So just give it a second. And the signing has been done successfully. So as soon as the signing is done, within 20 seconds, a doc signer will get activated and e-sign on this agreement and MITC for the bank side signature. Till that happens, let me show you. Yeah, so if you can see, I just did one e-sign and it showed me your e-sign has been recorded. And then within like less than 10 seconds, it said everyone has e-signed, and I got the signed agreements and the audit trail. I'll show you both the e-signs on this. So this is the credit card agreement with the MITC. There's the Aadhaar e-sign I did, and here is the doc signer which got automatically affixed to this particular document within 10 to 15 seconds. and I had to do nothing in this. Everything in this was automated. I'll show you the audit trail now. In this audit trail, every action I did, it's been logged right from sending to opening to signing, plus the consent that I had given for the e-sign, that's also captured. Let's say this journey was in Hindi as I was showing you. So then this e-sign consent would also be in Hindi. Now let me show you how this works. So first step would be just going to your legality sandbox. I'll just log in via OTP. Just give me 1 second for it. So see, same agreement I also got on email. It's up to you whether you want to send it on SMS, WhatsApp, or email. This is my login OTP. Yeah, for everything that for any workflow you would want to come to legality dashboard, and here it's quite simple. First thing you'd have to do is configure a template. If you'll see, I've already configured this template for MITC or agreement. This currently is an English template, but if you want, you can configure it in any language that you would want, and then similar language you can also set up in the interface. So this agreement is already set. Now, once this is done, you will have to create a workflow. So let's say let's create a workflow. You just create it. I'll say credit card demo. First thing would be me selecting the template, and then we also provide stamping. If for any agreement you need stamping, you can also just very simply toggle it on, select the series, get a series procurement done, and then just use that. But for this we don't need stamping, so I just click on next. So this is the template, and if you'll see, here are some fields given: customer name, DOB, gender, PAN card. So for cases wherein an agent is calling your customer on the call, they don't really need an API integration with your website or your app, right? They can simply log into Legality and they can fill the form right within Legality. How that's done, I'll show you in a second. So this is the template. I'm satisfied with it. I'll click next. Next thing I'll have to do is I'll have to configure the invitees. So this is my customer. Then I'll have to set up automated bank side signing as well. So I'll just select this doc center, and I'm just removing it for the sake of setting this up. So you have to enable Aadhaar resign for the signer. We'll do via OTP. You can also verify their details in the certificate generated by UIDA. This is the smart name verification we were talking about during the presentation stage. Here you can enable the smart name verification, or you can also do a strict matching, whichever works for you. Or there are a bunch of other parameters that you can match with. A lot of times what we found is people, or rather bankers, they prefer using smart name verification in addition with one of these other parameters, so the fraud prevention is quite, like, it's fail proof, right? So I'll just click on save. If you want to enable other security features in this, if you want to capture the face of the person who's signing this document, you can do that also. If you want to capture the location, you can do that also. If you want to enforce an OTP before they sign, you can do that also. And you can send them these notification on SMS, email, or WhatsApp, whichever you see fit, right? Let's have configured this signer, and let's assume this journey was in Hindi. So I'll click on this. I'll set a language for the interface, and I'll just select Hindi here. So whenever this workflow gets run, the legality e-sign interface will be in Hindi. And if you've configured the template in Hindi, that would also be in Hindi. I'll click next. Sorry, I toggled this on by mistake. So I click next. Sorry. Yeah, I'll click on next. So this is my agreement with my e-sign coordinates. I can change these coordinates also by using custom coordinates. And wherever I drop these, it will automatically get copied to every page. And it's done. So it took me like 3-4 seconds to set it up during this call, because I'm also explaining what I was doing. But if you're doing it on your own, it literally takes like a minute. And to run this, let's say your agent calls a person, they have to click on run. Template for them will be automatically selected. They don't need to do anything. They'll click on next. Now on the call, they'll collect information from the person who's getting the card, their detail, date of birth, gender, PAN, whatever information you would want to collect. If you want to collect some proofs also, you can add that also in this. It's basically up to you how you want to set up your template and for your MITC and agreement. They've collected the information, they'll click on next. Here they'll again enter the information for the person who's getting the card, or rather the card holder. That's all they'll have to do, and click on next. They'll quickly see the agreement. I'll show you, just give me, yeah. So if you would see, this was my original agreement which said Rohan Mehta. I had kept this purposefully to show you the difference of how it would be. So if you're getting a pre-filled agreement from your CRM systems or whatever system you might be using for credit cards, and this is the name I entered and DOB and gender I entered through the template. So you can do it both ways. I'll send invite. Yeah, this invite will come to me within seconds as the customer to e-sign, and I'll click on e-sign and I'll do the same journey that I showed you a couple of minutes back. So cool. So this would be same. Now let me show you how fraud prevention via verify would work. So let's say I'm sending this document again. Here I would want to verify the name of the person who's signing. I'll click on save. Okay, I'll just change my name a little here. I'll just put Shubham, and we'll see what happens when I try to do this Aadhaar e-sign with verification enabled. Yeah, so this is done. Now let me try doing the same e-sign using my own Aadhaar. And if you just again a reminder, the name I had entered in it was Shubham, not Shubhesh, which is my name. So yeah, again Shubham, right? I'll click on e-sign consent. I'll again give e-sign consent to Protean, and I'll attempt to do this e-sign. Okay, OTPs come to me. Just entering it. So we'll just wait to see for a couple of seconds what happens. So Leegality is processing the certificate generated by UIDA, and I recognize that the person who attempted the signature, their Aadhaar detail did not match the details submitted during the application stage, and it stopped the e-sign form getting affixed. And coming back to the screen where I get details of the signing journey as the bank side RM or agent, it will say it got expired because verification failed. So as you can see, verification failed. Input value on the application was Shubham and certificate value was Shubhesh Kanodia. And that brings us to the end of this demo. I hope you found it useful.
Thanks, Shubhesh. So I think there's a poll running on screen in case you enjoyed the demo but want a one-on-one demo for your specific use case, have more questions that you want to ask, more detailed questions, more detailed doubts that you want to have a longer discussion on, do vote in the poll and we'll reach out to you if you answer yes. So the poll will be running for about 30-40 seconds. So as the poll runs, we've kind of done a screenshot based flow, a kind of mini screenshot based version of what Shubhesh showed you for quick internal reference. That's on screen right now. And apart from that, if we can go to the next slide. So in case you're interested, these are the results of the flow that we've shown you, right? For one of India's largest credit card companies that's using Leegality for MITC agreements and forms. They've done about slightly more than 1 crore credit card onboarding documents already, application forms, address declarations, MITC. It takes approximately, for 95% of documents, it takes approximately 6 minutes or less for the document to actually be signed. And 24% of these e-signs actually happen outside of working hours, right? So with an e-sign based process, not only do you comply with RBI regulations, but you can also make the process work for you even when your staff are not working, right? You can have it run automatically and you can basically do onboarding even while your branch is shut, even while your offices are shut, right? So in case you're interested, do reach out to us. And in case like you don't want a demo, but you still want updates about regulations, updates about our product, new case studies that we prepare with our clients, do sign up, do scan the QR code and sign up for our weekly opt-in messaging facility. We send you one message per week maximum, either via WhatsApp or email. When you scan, you'll be given that option. And yeah, as I mentioned, we'll send you regulatory updates, product updates, and case studies. So if you're interested, do scan the QR code. With that, we're done with the session about 30 minutes after we started. We'll now take questions. So if you have questions, either do one of two things. Either raise your hand and we'll give you mic access, or drop the questions in the Q&A box below. So we'll be there for 2 minutes. In case you have questions, do let us know. And in case, of course, some question strikes you later, we will be sending an email, as I mentioned, by Monday evening with the recording. You can just reply to that email with further questions that you have. And if this question strikes you even after that, you can also reach out to Shubhash or I on email or LinkedIn. So Shubhash will drop our contact coordinates, our email coordinates in the chat below. So do reach out to us anytime. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah, our email is dropped in the chat. I don't think we have any questions. We'll wait for one more minute and see. Great. Thank you so much for attending.